So I'm going to be starting a new series here on this channel of books that I recommend for beginners. They're not going to be for everyone, of course. That's why we're going to be looking at them as individual reviews. Books I think that you should have on your shelf. Books that go a little bit beyond just giving you a list of basic correspondence, that get your brain thinking and hopefully answer some questions for you in your own craft and where to go. So let's talk about it. So the first book in this series is going to be 6 Ways by Aidan Wachter. Wachter, not Watcher. Sorry, Aiden. I bet you're going to watch this too. That's so embarrassing. Anyway, this book I think everyone should own. And I mean that in a very, very serious way. I like Aiden a lot, and I think he's an incredible magician, magical person, which I don't really know how Aiden self-identifies, actually. I'm going to ask him about that. That being said, I think that this book is something every single person should have. We actually went over this in my own book club for Patreon. We did a deep dive on it, and every single person who read it had a lot of positive things to say. My favorite part about this book, from a personal level, is that Aiden meets you as a, take me as I am. This is what I do, take it or leave it. And I really respect and appreciate that. I think that a lot of books, especially ones that are aimed at beginners, they kind of give you these outlines, if you will, that feel a little bit like rules sometimes. And I'm not saying that witchcraft doesn't have rules. I mean, it doesn't, but that's a very loose expression that has been taken out of context a lot. And people on the internet especially tend to blow it a little bit out of proportion from what it actually is intended to mean. So the rules that maybe you find in other books that make you feel maybe a little bit nervous, a little bit limited to what you can do, and feeling like perhaps you're doing something wrong, Aiden's book approaches it in a very different way. He breaks down his own practice and essentially is like, listen, here's how I do sigils. Here's how I view animism. And I appreciate that a lot. I think it also gives people who are newish to the craft a very honest approach to witchcraft that a lot of books are lacking. I'm not saying, of course, that all books suffer from this. That's what this whole series is about. But I think that Aiden's book specifically really covers magic in a way that is down to earth, realistic, and gives people that maybe have never tried something before a realistic example of what that might look like that comes across as a little bit less scary. So a few things that Aiden talks about in this book that I think that people should kind of have in their back pocket that I at least have not seen in other books. Doesn't mean it's not out there, it's just not one that I can recall reading elsewhere. Is first of all, he talks about a magical ecosystem. I'm going to set this down. I don't need to hold it. You all know what the cover looks like. He talks about things like a magical ecosystem. And essentially what he refers to is us keeping ourselves clean, as in cleanse spiritually, with a lot of magic. Cleansing is kind of like you get out in the mud, and doing magic is being out in the garden and pulling a bunch of weeds, and when you're done, you're going to need to go take a shower or wash your hands, whatever, right? And magically it's the same sort of thing. He also talks about things like how we are all spirits, and I personally love that a lot from this book. I believe it was just like a little footnote, but it was something that I have thought about before multiple times, about how these are just kind of like our flesh carcasses. And that we are all spirits, and spirits are around us. Spirits are, in the earth, etc. He touches on this with his discussions into animism. And I think that even if you aren't into witchcraft from a spiritual standpoint, you can get a lot from that. Aiden also talks about chaos magic, which is a kind of buzzword these days on the internet that is completely kind of veered off from what the original meaning of chaos magic is. And I'm not a chaos magician, so I'm not going to sit here and police that language in any capacity. But what I do appreciate is that Aiden talks about chaos magic and describes it in a way that isn't just being like, oh yeah, it's being chaotic. Although it can be at times, to my understanding. I think that he touches on a lot of different things: folkcraft, animism, chaos magic, and then his own kind of personal beliefs into spiritualism. And all of it is approached in a way that it is very much so a this is what I do, take it or leave it. And I respect and appreciate that very much. I think that Aiden is an incredibly intelligent person, and all of the books of his that I've read, so I've also read Weaving Fate, um, incredible. He just had a recent one come out called Changeling that I haven't read yet, but I am going to be purchasing and reading as soon as I get my current to read stack down a little bit. I know that reading books is not going to be something that everyone has accessibility to on a regular basis, and Aiden's books specifically, to my knowledge, are not in the library system because he is self-publishing. That being said, though, if you are going to buy a book that is going to give you a realistic approach and a take it or leave it attitude towards witchcraft, I really think that Six Ways is one that is worth investing the money into, and is one that you're probably going to refer back to several times. Everyone should get it, in my opinion. It should be on everyone's library shelf, their own little personal library, especially if you're new to witchcraft and you're like, what in the hell does this mean? Aiden's got you. So if you haven't already, go and buy this. Seriously. It's also really great to support somebody who is self-publishing, because that, in my opinion, takes a lot of balls. So yeah, go get this. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know.